Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Speak Up South Africa seminar series. Today's topic is creative storytelling for advocacy. I'm Kat White, and I am hosting this session. It's a collaborative project between the Campaign for Free Expression and the Rhodes University School of Journalism. We have a fantastic panel all lined up and waiting to inspire you and to answer your questions and to contribute quite meaningfully to this topic. It's such an ever-changing media landscape, and creativity is more important than ever. We are going to be recording. This is a session that's being recorded. As always, feel free to ask away. This is really conversational, and yeah, it's jump in, put your question in the chat, raise your hand, and we'll definitely get to all the questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first panelist. Once the panelists have been introduced, they will have about 10 minutes or so to give their opening remarks on the topic, and that'll be followed by a question and answer session. And there, we'd really like you to jump in, ask some questions, share a little bit more about what you're working on, and we're going to be doing our level best to try and answer everything and try and equip you as best we can for your projects for the Speak Up Essay competition. So we are honored to welcome Zapiro, South Africa's most iconic cartoonist and a fearless political cartoonist, to say, with decades of work published in South Africa's leading newspapers. His sharp satire and visual commentary have consistently challenged power, exposed hypocrisy, and sparked national debate. He's received numerous awards for journalism, press freedom, and cartooning, including the International Press Institute's World Press Freedom Hero Award. He also has a much longer list of awards and honorary doctorates, one of them being from Rhodes University. It's an honorary doctorate in laws, if I'm not mistaken. And Zapiro, it's such a pleasure and it's such a privilege to welcome you and for you to be a part of this and to be available to students. We are actually dropping his full biography in the chat. You would have received that on email as well, because if we were to read it, we would probably be nearing the end of the session. But without further ado, Zapiro, we're going to be handing over to you. Can you share your screen?
Hi, yeah, I'm also by some distance the oldest here, I'm sure, by a long way. So I've been doing these things for so many years. I thought I would just launch straight in and just talk about the idea that the reason that I've got the little light bulb thing of myself is that creative ideas for creative advocacy, for me, satire and humor are all about surprise. It's about getting people to see things in a new way, in a way that either they say, I wish I'd thought of that, I never thought about it like that, or that's exactly what I was thinking, and I just didn't know how to say it. So those are the kinds of things I'm trying to do. I deal with things of the moment. So recently, of course, the great Coldplay moment. I found a way, whoa, look at those two. And it just felt immediately to me like Trump Epstein.
Let's sorry, Zapiro, just as you continue there, let's get you, can you share your screen? I know you've got some of your work that you'd like to share with us.
I thought it was now up. Sorry, just let me go. I'm just going to do that again. Okay, there. So yeah, I thought that I had got that up. Share.
No worries. There we go.
Yeah,
Screen. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. There we go. Okay, now can you see?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, geez, I was busy like talking to myself there. I thought the cartoons were up. Sorry about the delay, everybody else. So yeah, the Trump Epstein thing felt, I just immediately it literally took me a few seconds of thinking, who do I want to have there exposed? And that was the idea that I got, and it worked well. I'm going to take you back like decades to something else, because as I said, things are all, I like doing cartoons that are done in different ways, the ways that you wouldn't expect. So Jacob Zuma, in this case, back in 2004, he should have been charged with Shabir Sheikh, his financial advisor. He wasn't charged. Shabir Sheikh was then found guilty of bribing Zuma, and so what did that actually say? We had the verdict. We didn't have the sentence yet. We had the verdict. The verdict was join the dots. So that idea that Zuma is guilty of being bribed, if Shabir Sheikh is guilty of bribing him. What I liked about this cartoon as well is that I did it very carefully so that my children could actually do it, and it works. It's not so easy to do these things. You have to actually figure out exactly how to do them. But I also heard that there were senior ANC people, including cabinet ministers, sitting with a copy of the Mail and Guardian just out of view in Parliament, actually joining the dots, which is fantastic. By the way, also about 12 years before Pravin Gordhan made the join the dots expression famous. Another Zuma cartoon, a much more serious cartoon, when Zuma was trying in 2008 to get the corruption charges dropped against him, that he's still trying to get dropped, so that he could become president. He was bullying and threatening the judiciary, and I did the cartoon that I've become best known for, which was this one. Go for it, boss. It's still a very, very hectic image, the idea of a potential gang rape scene about to happen, but it is a metaphor. I had to explain it. I got taken to the Human Rights Commission. They gave me the go-ahead. And then Zuma actually sued me in the second lawsuit that he sued me for. He'd already sued me for 15 million rand. Then for 3 other cartoons. Now he was suing me for this one for 7 million rand, just for this cartoon. And eventually, after 4 years, he had to drop the charges because it would have been too damaging for him had this come to court. And he actually paid our costs. But it's a cartoon that actually got onto a list of 15 cartoons that changed the world. I have no illusion about the idea that it changed the world, but these are all cartoons from the last 200 years that have had a big impact on the society in which they were drawn at the time. So just another Zuma cartoon. As you see, I'm looking for things that either what I said about a twist or a surprise. It can be something that makes you laugh. It can be something that outrages you. It can be just cerebral. It can be something that has pathos and sadness, but it's all about trying to show something in a new way. You don't just say what is there. And you're not a reporter as a cartoonist. You're not a reporter. You are a visual columnist. So when Jacob Zuma was, he went to jail for like about 5 minutes for his contempt of court against the Zondo Commission. He also then, when he was due back in court and it was possible that he was going to have to go back to jail, where was he? He was suddenly in Russia. Now, we all knew that he had this supposed illness, a terminal illness, and he'd gone to Russia for medical treatment. So there's Zuma's terminal condition. Terminal A, Moscow with Putin. Terminal B, Dubai with Dudizane. Terminal C, Vanuatu with the Guptas. They actually had passports for Vanuatu. Can you believe it? So this again, a cartoon that cartoons are often about a play on words. His terminal condition. It was a nice, easy cartoon for me to do. Another cartoon that worked well. But cartoons are not always about a whole lot of drawing. Back in Thabo Mbeki's time when he was president, and he, unlike Mandela, was not trying always to be a reconciler. He said something that I completely agreed with. He said that the white people had not apologized for apartheid properly, that the TRC hadn't fully worked as something to reconcile, and there were many white people who were saying the National Party was lying to us. You know, I didn't know what was going on. I was too young. I was out of the country, and I did a cartoon which I just felt I had to do. Whites who never benefited from apartheid. And that is the best cartoon I've ever done on that subject. And it is, it's completely simple. I suddenly realized what spoke more eloquently than any text that I could write and any drawing I could do was this white space, because every white person back then and now, even now, back then benefited and even continues to benefit from apartheid. And it's a cartoon that I still feel has relevance. So that's a cartoon that has very little in the way of, it's almost no text, and it's a surprise. Another kind of a cartoon that I'll just show a similar kind of thinking, but it looks kind of different. When I heard that Eskom was going to have some new branding at a cost of a lot of money, millions spent on new logo, I thought maybe that would be the logo. So it's, again, a very simple cartoon, but this cartoon got lots of traction because of tapping into the public mood about Eskom. And we all think, you know, this shit of Eskom, you know, so just maybe that match represents them. Cartoons can be that twist or that surprise or whatever it is, can be done in a single panel like most of these that I've shown you, but it could also be comic strip style. So here was one. I'll just show you one back from 1996, I think it is, or 97. Tequila cocktail, Mr. President. Oh, no, thanks. I seldom drink hardtack. Madiba hardly ever drinks hardtack. Madiba's had hardtack once or twice. Madiba has had heart attack. Madiba's had a heart attack. And there's the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Parks, do I look ill? No, why, Mr. President? Mandela heart attack rumor sends Rand plummeting. And so I did a broken telephone thing where I worked backwards. I thought, how did that happen? How did somebody come up with this idea? Mandela's had a heart attack. And I worked backwards. And again, it was a very fun cartoon to do, but one that people liked. So just a few more. One of the things that those of us in satire use is parody. Parody is where you do something that is very close to the original. You just change a few things, whether it's a song, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's whatever it is, a poem, or whatever. You just change just a few things. So in this case, when the Government of National Unity came about, I thought it was an opportunity for a parody. Then the New Dawn. This is parodying both The Lion King and of course, you had your little Simba, the tiny little animal being held up by one animal, by Rafiki. In this case, it's a massive animal. The gnu. Some people, by the way, I have to say what the gnu is. A gnu is the English version of wildebeest, just in case there are people these days who don't know that. That's the reason that I used this gnu in 1994, and I brought it back in when we got the new in 2024, yeah. And of course, it also gives a chance for the little hyenas down at the bottom with Jacob Zuma and MK, and it's also parodying Cyril's phrase of the new dawn. Okay, so just a couple more parody ones, and then we're at a couple more parody things. In the recent stuff with the not having an ambassador, that the Americans were, when Ibrahim Rasool was shown to have criticized Donald Trump, and these days in America and elsewhere, you have to bend the knee to Trump. So I had this, at last, a perfect South African ambassador. This is a parody of a cartoon from more than 100 years ago about a headless soldier. So I put that after Robert Miner's A Perfect Soldier from 1916. But I, put them in their sort of Nazi uniforms because I think they're genuine fascists. And this soldier, this ambassador, headless, so he can't think or speak or whatever, would be, somebody acceptable to Trump. And on that subject, with the South Africans being invited, the white South Africans being invited to America And when I heard of these sort of strange places they were going to go, and I was wondering who these people are, Idaho welcomes white Afrikaner refugees. They look strangely familiar. They came from the far side. And I just suddenly thought how weirdly similar some of these white Afrikaners who were going there are, not all Afrikaners, but the ones who were going there, and these kind of middle American barbecue people, and they just, and anyway, and again, this is a cartoon that flew because people kind of responded to it very well. So I mentioned in terms of parodies, another kind of parody that you do is you kind of parody memes. I was trying to think of a cartoon around this horrendous Eastern Cape judge, Selby Mbenenge, who clearly was sexually harassing a junior colleague. Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge's sexual harassment tribunal. The judge takes the stand. It's a fallacy. But suddenly when that phrase came out that the judge was going to take the stand, I just thought of this. He had sent these eggplant logo, these eggplant emojis to this woman, this poor woman who was trying to fend him off, and he'd sent the apricot, the peach logo, and the peeled banana, and all of these are the things that he actually sent to her, and that one in the top right is one that she sent back. So it suddenly just felt like right to make him the erect eggplant. A much more serious. There's two more, and then I'll be done. On I'm sure some of you might know that I'm pretty hardline, even as a Jewish South African, on Israel and Palestine, and have been for decades and decades, taken a lot of flack for it. This was 1 year after the October 7 attack. Release the hostages. 100 Israelis held captive by Palestinians for 1 year. 5 million Palestinians held captive by Israel for 76 years. Nakba 1948, free Palestine, end the genocide. So the twist, release the hostages. I'm saying, yes, release the hostages. Release the other hostages. And Israel, with America's help and a lot of the West, has held Palestine hostage for more than 3/4 of a century. And the last one is, as I said, that was a serious one. The last one is a light one. We don't often get a chance to kind of lord it over our great foes, the All Blacks. And when we started to get to that stage, green is the new black. When we suddenly had all of those things, World Cup 2019 and 23 and Freedom Cup 24, ranking #1 and won our last 4 meetings against the All Blacks, and we had the Rugby Championship almost sewn up. I actually heard somebody say the phrase on radio, and I couldn't find who to acknowledge that, who to acknowledge. I always put an acknowledgement if I can, but I thought it worked well for a cartoon. Thank you. That is it from me until commentary time.
Thank you very much, Zapiro. It's such an honor to see your work and to have you actually explaining it to us, because your work is self-explanatory. But to have you really look at some of the details of your motivation behind it just makes it so much more engaging, and we understand it in a totally different way. The fact that you were taken to the Human Rights Commission, an amount of 7 million rand, is that what you said? And eventually that was dropped. You really are a fearless cartoonist, and you've really just shown us how satire and illustration can provoke, and how it can challenge, and how it can mobilize. So thank you very much for that, and we'll definitely get back to the Q&A session. But I would now like to go over to, and Zapiro, if you could just end the share screen, we can move over to Jeff Wicks. We are also really honored to have Jeff Wicks, brilliant multi-award winning investigative journalist with the Media 24 investigative unit, joining us and sharing a little bit more about his investigative journalism as a tool for justice and for that kind of advocacy work. Also reporting in high stakes sort of environments, the July Unrest book. I'd love to know, Jeff, a little bit more about your storytelling choices, but just a little bit of a background. Jeff Wicks is an award-winning South African investigative journalist, senior reporter at News 24's investigations team. His reporting focuses on corruption, organized crime, policing, and politics. He's a co-author of 8 Days in July, Inside the Zuma Unrest that set South Africa alight. It's a gripping account of the 2021 riots. So Jeff is known for his dogged pursuit of the truth and his ability to turn complex investigations into compelling public interest journalism. So being more on the traditional side of reporting and storytelling, I'd now like to welcome Jeff Wicks for his opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Kat, for the invite, and thank you to everyone who's come to listen to us, and to Mr. Zapiro, very hard act to follow. With me, you will get no visual aids, unfortunately. You just get my face for radio. But I'm a member of News 24's investigations team. It's a job I was very lucky to snag in 2020, following 14 years spent as a crime reporter in various titles. When I was in high school, just to give you a sense of how I got my start, I was undecided about what I wanted to do, and I read a book called The Bang Bang Club. And yeah, I was taken. I knew that journalism would be for me because it sounded like it was just a constant vortex of adrenaline. How shocked I was when I actually got into the industry and realized what it actually is. And I started my career in newspapers when we laid out a story with a picture and block text. And now, as the media landscape has evolved, we have incredible opportunities for creativity. And what I'm going to try to talk to you about tonight is the creativity that we try and inject or try and infuse to our investigations and how we do it. So our investigations team is 5 strong, an immensely talented group of colleagues that I work with. We have our editor, Peter du Toit, and we sit in our office in Randburg. And, you know, I think this is the best job I've ever had. I mean, I've never been more stressed in my life, but you know, we have an incredible responsibility, not only as investigative journalists, but as journalists, to hold those in power to account. And I don't want to appear holier than thou or lofty or try and pontificate about journalism, but I think the importance of investigative journalism specifically has been underscored by the many corruption scandals that have marked South African history, and how many of those have been brought to the fore by very brave and dedicated investigative journalists. No one sitting in this room now, or anywhere in fact, would have known about the opulence and excess of Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead were it not for Mandy Rousseau and Nicholas Dawes from the Mail and Guardian. That was 20 odd years ago. Now, fast forward to yesterday, my colleague Peter Louis Myburg producing a seminal moment in South African investigative journalism, catching a bribe in that way on camera, is the most incredible thing that I think has come out of South African journalism this year. And the man needs his flowers. And it forces us to confront the reality that we are in. We have a responsibility to safeguard the public purse and to act in the public interest. And that's what we try to do. And our team is geared around the aggressive combating of corruption and wrongdoing when we see it. And that is all in aid of the public interest. That's what we try and do every single day. And I mean, I was making jokes with the other panelists before everyone joined, but you know, I have a diploma in journalism, so I don't count myself as some sort of media luminary or an academic like some people who are here. But how I've always approached my work is that journalism rests upon two pillars. It's your ability and your want to get the story, and then your ability to tell it. You can't have one without the other. It makes no sense to produce a fantastic investigation, get everything you need to weave together this picture, and then be unable to weave it. And that's where your creativity and your effectiveness in communication comes in. Both are equally important. And it's something that I've always tried to apply, because I believe that creative writing and the way we produce our stories, especially in the way the media is evolving today, is an imperative. We are gifted wonderful opportunities with the platform that News 24 has, and news websites have stepped into the void left by newspapers, and it gives you a much more latitude to be innovative in the way you tell your stories. And it's something that we try to do because we have moved beyond the days of block text and pictures. And for that reason, we must evolve if our journalism is to remain relevant, because when we really think about it, every day when we publish, we support democracy and we influence the national dialogue. We are there to unmask those who have benefited from wrongdoing, even if the state will not act against them. That's our burden, and we do so willingly, because at least for me, journalism is a vocation. There's nothing else that I could ever see myself doing. And I think, just to illustrate what I've been saying, when I first joined News 24's investigations team, my colleague and I, Carl Cowan, we were looking at the assassination of anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear. And he was shot in the face while traveling home. He was just pulled into his driveway, and someone walked up and took his life. And our investigation led us to a private detective. His name is Zane Killian. And we were able to prove that he was using sophisticated spying technology that should only be the preserve of law enforcement to track Charles Kinnear and several hundred other people, politicians, prosecutors, other cops. It was rampant spying. And at the heart of this was the tragic assassination of a dedicated policeman. Now, investigations by their nature don't really lend themselves to creative writing. It's very much about SPD bid form 9 and databases that stretch into the thousands when it comes to emails. And when we were doing that project, Killing Kinnear, we managed to get Zane Killian's ping list, essentially the entire list of every single phone number he'd ever tracked. And that's an Excel spreadsheet that stretches into 18,000 different cell phone numbers. And then we thought to ourselves, well, how do we make this palatable to the reader? How do we really underline the gravity of this spying scandal that turned deadly? And we came up with a project that visualized the pings. We felt we needed to really tell the story in a way that was visually understandable, because there was just so much data. And we managed to put together, and I must say, credit to Carl Cowan, because he was the one who really drove the technical aspect of it, visualizations of the pings. And we were able to follow Charles Kinnear on his final drive home. We could see exactly how he was tracked. He left the office, the route he took, because Zane Killian was pinging his phone every 25 seconds. And the last ping stopped 45 seconds after the gunman pulled the trigger. So now Zane Killian is before court in this matter. And our story was published in, I think, the end of 2020, and he's still awaiting trial. And to move to the project that we're working on now, anyone who claims to be a journalist and a journalism student would have watched General Mkhwanazi's press briefing. And he spoke of the capture of the police, not only the police, but the political principle of the police, the senzo mqunu. And the supposed capture has played out by underworld figures and gangsters and drug cartels. And it's dramatic, and it roils the entire security and justice cluster. It is a national security risk, to be frank. And truly, it was acknowledgement, because midway through last year, we started investigating an assassination of Ahmad Swat. And that is where the story that Mkhwanazi told began. And another focal point of what we're doing is an investigation called 9 Lives, which looks at a guy by the name of Vusi Muzi Cat Matlala. His access to state tenders, he first appeared on our radar at Tembisa Hospital when we were investigating the assassination of Babita Deokran. Despite that, he continued to win state tenders, and he is an active underworld figure, if you can believe that. And now, again, this is very pithy information. It's about murders, bloodshed, and tragedy, and how do we infuse elements of creativity in that? And you know, something that struck me about him was his sobriquet, Cat. Where did it come from? And why does everyone call this guy Cat? And we found out that there were many explanations for this. There's a Sesotho word, katse, and katse in the township Mamelodi where he grew up refers to cash and transit robbers. And when we looked at his criminal history, which we managed to get our hands on from persons unknown, we found that he was actually criminally charged for cash and transit back in 2006. So there might be a basis for that nickname. The other narrative is that he was shot during a cash and transit robbery, and he was looked close to shuffling off the mortal coil, but survived. So he became the cat with 9 lives. That notwithstanding, from the moment we started this project, I made certain to include Cat. It was always going to be Vusi Muzi Cat Matlala because we were building a persona. And the way we tell our stories is not with one bang and it's done. We work on projects, and that helps you build a persona and build a narrative arc about this person who is now at the center of one of the most significant policing scandals, arguably since the days of Jackie Selebi. So, you know, not only investigative journalism, but all journalism requires creativity, and it requires you to really focus on the way that you tell your stories. They require nuance and depth because that is the duty that you have to the reader, to tell the entire story. And it's not just a staccato blurting out of facts, but you must become a storyteller, even if the stories are about corruption and bid rigging and those very woolly concepts that very few people understand. So thank you for listening to me. And I hope that many of you have questions for when we get to the end of this.
Thank you very much, Jeff. A very tough job to have, certainly, and lots of risks involved in that. And I can only imagine the difficulties in making that kind of journalistic work really speak to an audience in a creative way, because the work itself it sort of has that shock factor, and you almost, I personally, I mean, touching from my personal voice here, is I think the work is so powerful. Where does one need to make it more creative? I mean, do we really need to make it more sensational than it is? Because it is quite, a lot of this is quite bizarre already. But we will certainly get back to that. I'd like to now move on to our next panelist, Stephen Horn. Stephen has done some really amazing work in the new digital media space, particularly with, he's the director at Politically Aweh. It's a youth-driven news, satire, and explainer platform. His work focuses on using video storytelling and humor to make politics and civic issues more accessible to young audiences in particular. I'm interested to know, how young are we going? What is your sort of age bracket when we say young audiences? With a background in both broadcast and digital media, Stephen is passionate about blending creativity with accuracy to drive awareness, education, and impact through multimedia. Stephen, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Kat. Can you all hear me? Sounds good? Great. I appreciate being here. And honestly, just talking about tough acts to follow, I definitely feel like an imposter, but very grateful to follow the likes of Zapiro and Jeff Wicks, whose presentations I really enjoyed. And yeah, to answer your question, Kat, I guess it's something that we often wrestle with, but we are thinking about trying to reach young people and the young at heart. So we know that we actually have some older fans, but that our audience skews young, and that we know that there was a kind of a lack of media that was specifically tailored to making sure that young people could feel like politics is for them and accessible to them. And that was partly the genesis of the idea behind Politically Aweh, which is AWEH. We've got a word play there on the slang word away. So to kind of just zoom out a little bit, and then I'll come back to the creativity and media and accountability theme where we've all beautifully like kind of converged on. So it was my partial upbringing in France, where I got to discover a media there that felt more relevant to young people in terms of politics and accessible, and yet didn't talk down to young people, kept the issues, fully described, but in a more engaging way. And so I set about, with a few other friends, to create a new platform, and it took a long time. So I just want to say to the students on the call that please dream big. South Africa needs new media voices. Many times I was tempted to kind of just either throw in the towel while building this thing, or let it be sort of managed or absorbed by other media entities. And we were approached, but we kind of fought tooth and nail to always retain our IP and continue building and believing in the vision. And so it started as a 2017 YouTube channel, where we explained how this was in the dark days of the state capture under former President Jacob Zuma, and we basically explained the stakes of a motion of no confidence. I think about the ninth such attempt in Parliament, for Parliament to remove Jacob Zuma, and there were various MPs who were, not many, but one or two only from the ANC, who were willing to go on the record and say they were going to vote with the opposition parties to remove Jacob Zuma as president, in a motion of no confidence to attempt to remove him. And one of them was Dr. Makosi Khoza. And so we kind of did this video explaining the implications, that she was getting death threats. A lot of the news, I'm sure this will set your imagination on fire, Jeff. At the time, it felt like reading a thriller day to day. I mean, there was Gupta leaks. It still blows my mind reading, for example, the expose just mentioned on Daily Maverick yesterday, that it's so brazen, the level of corruption, unfortunately. But at the time, these death threats being made to a ANC MP who didn't toe the line, or who was, to quote many of the other party members, extremely ill-disciplined. Well, we basically did a video that showed how there was a certain narrative to try and cast her out in a corner, and to show that she should toe the party line, and that she was getting death threats and so on. So we filmed a scene that actually felt like House of Cards. We went to the front of Parliament in Cape Town at night, no permit, just very gung-ho. And we filmed a kind of fake South African version, of a parody version, to use Zapiro, Jonathan's term, of House of Cards. And that was the beginning of a format which blends humor, memes, pop culture, anchored by personable comedians that work together with journalists. Our current head of news is Lester Kiewit, who's got a long track record in journalism. And we have worked with a variety of people who have bylines from M&G, New York Times, Daily Maverick. So we really try and work with top quality journalists, and we combine that with some of the most awarded and funniest people in the country on the comedians front, and blend that all up. And then you get a new format that hopefully is more accessible, funny, and reaches people. So where they're at, we publish on digital media. We've grown our YouTube channel quite well. We've got a growing audience on TikTok and Instagram, and we are also broadcast on Cape Town TV, with a view to continually adding more broadcasters. So that's where we reach people. And I thought I would just sketch out that the organization that we have today was founded in 2022. We now have a board in place. It's a nonprofit media company. So that journey was, it's actually turned 8 years old already this past July, starting from a YouTube channel, getting some grant funding from National Film and Video Foundation, and then becoming an entity that today is able to continue the work thanks to various foundations that support us. And yeah, so that's where we're at. We're now just launched our new season of our show. Last week, we have a new piece on the MK Party. We are driving awareness around civic issues, as you mentioned in your intro, Kat. That's really the goal. We've got 4 pillars, which include a very strong environmental and climate focus. We're talking corporate and government accountability, civic ed and democracy, and social justice and human rights issues. So it's a broad spectrum, and that's allowed us to tap into various themes that are important to people at different times. And I think that one of the issues that affects a lot of people is local service delivery. And I think, is it okay if I share a short parody video, Kat, to demonstrate how format works? Let me see if I can get it working. I will share. Let me see if it's this. Will this work? And then here. Can you all see this? And will it share the sound? I hope it shares the sound. Let me know if it's.
We travel far and wide across the country to bring you only the best of South Africa's worst small towns. Makanda, fame.
Are we fast forwarding, Steve?
Now that's what I call an inspiring.
Sorry.
All good, all good. Following. Yeah.
Testimony.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've actually lost some of that sound. I don't know if we want to just give it one more go because we did have sound there at some stage. Did you fast forward a little bit maybe?
Was it when I muted my
Yes,
sound?
don't mute yourself.
Oh,
don't-
I thought it might open my microphone. Okay, let me just take it back from here and not mute myself.
Insane drinking culture. As a water to drink culture. Now that's some quality cock right there. They will come and say there's service delivered, there's absolutely nothing. Now that's what I call an inspiring testimony. I'm getting a little emotional myself. What can I say? The secret to our success lies in our great team and the pride we take in being one of the cockest towns in the whole country. Thank you. The competition was very tight, but this year, the winner is...
So there's one example of a show that we did called Kakist Dorp van die Jaar, instead of Dorp van die Jaar, which is a popular CakeNet format that goes on the road to find the country's best towns. There we highlight local government corruption by visiting various towns in a kind of parody way. And we have an interview with the mayor of the most corrupt towns. It does feel in a way a little bit overwhelming to discover corruption, but if we can laugh at it, and then at the end of this sketch that we do, we go to Mbali and Tuli from Groundwork Collective, who gives us really concrete on-the-ground solutions that everyday citizens can take to address the corruption in their local municipality. That's kind of the goal that we have behind such a piece. And then is there time for me to play one more segment, or tell me when I'm running out of time?
Please do.
Okay, and it's playing and sounding fine now? Great. Okay, so before I launch into it, I'll give some context. I've also worked in the climate space in South Africa, and I've I've done a fair bit of advocacy through a movement called Clean Creatives, which unites ad agencies, PR companies, to decline work from fossil fuel companies. Those of you who follow the news will know that this has been yet another record hot year. There's fires in Europe. We will continuously experience heat waves that get worse and worse every year unless we mitigate our greenhouse gas emissions. And 75+%, some estimates put it as 80 or 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are causing global warming come from the fossil fuel industry. That's the burning of coal, oil, and gas. So while alternatives exist like solar and wind, we need urgent and high ambition to reduce our emissions and have a just energy transition over to cleaner sources of energy. But South Africa's second most polluting company is Sasol. And it expends vast amounts of money on corporate social responsibility to make us think it's a good corporate citizen. It obviously is a major jobs creator and provides a lot of South Africa's fuel, which it converts from coal to liquids in a very polluting process. In fact, its plant where it does that is amongst the most, it is the single point source of the most greenhouse gases in the world, Secunda. So we took the Sasol corporate video and did our own spin on it, featuring Sivin Gesi, who's a very popular comic actor and influencer.
Here at Sasol, we value community impact. We're the second biggest driver of hospital admissions in Mpumalanga, which is why our famous adverts use the phrase "pluk pluk." Because that's the sound of someone living near Secunda fuel plant, gasping for clear air. In 2016 alone, our pollution killed at least 34 people, showing our commitment to developing the local funeral industry.
We also believe in supporting our community by investing in early childhood development. Life expectancy in an environment filled with toxic air and water is short, so let's make it count.
We want children to live, breathe, and drink science, specifically vanadium, diethylamine, and potassium carbonate. According to our former employee, who's now in hiding for some reason, we've donated these chemicals into a river which goes into the Vaal Dam.
Oh, yeah, I used to work with Ian. Always worrying about silly things like rivers. Why don't you cry me a river, bro?
What better way to share the mineral wealth of this country than putting it into the drinking water? At Sasol, we value being a world leader. Our plant in Secunda should really be called First Up because it's the largest single-point greenhouse gas emitter in the world.
Basically, we keep telling everyone that our emissions will magically fall 30% by the end of the decade, but they actually just keep rising.
The only thing falling around here is the share price.
Sell, sell, sell. We're also reducing the risk of any climate protesters disrupting our whole safe space by holding our AGMs online.
What was that? Missions. You love our missions? Oh no, your connection dropped.
People accuse us of exploiting the environment to make a profit. But that's an outrageous lie. We are committed to the triple bottom decline, failing on people, planet, and profit. At Sasol, we're innovating for a better world. One without Sasol.
So that's just a small sample of our attempts to hold corporates accountable. Corporates who have multi-billion rand advertising budgets. As you come into the international arrivals terminal at OR Tambo, you'll be greeted by massive Sasol billboard advertising. So we obviously are a small blip on their radar, but apparently we spooked their investor shareholder relations department with this video. Which we released a week before their AGM last year. And we also heard directly from the whistleblower, Ian Erasmus, featured in this video, who reached out to say he's still in hiding. It's very scary. He's waiting for his case to go ahead. And he gratefully thanked us for featuring his story, his testimony in the video. So I think that when we think about corruption and accountability, not that I'm alleging any corruption here at all, but when we think about accountability, or specifically, we often think about government, but I think that there's something very important for us to think about as media and as journalists and how we hold companies accountable. And I'll end off, I know I've exceeded my time limit, so I'll just end off by saying that we see the evolution of media as a really interesting and critical period right now. We know we're called new media by being online, and how we think about big tech's role, regulating that, finding the way forward to ensure media is sustainable when Facebook and, well, Meta and Google have essentially taken up all the advertising revenue that media used to rely on. And the problem of corporate PR absorbing talented journalists. The best communicators are now working to spread the propaganda of companies as opposed to sharing the truth about the state of society. And then we wonder how Trump gets elected and other ways our democracy fails us. So I think that is just some food for thought. Very grateful to be here and to take any questions you might have. Thanks, Kat. I'll hand it back to you.
Stephen, thank you. That was brilliant. I mean, we all love, I love journalism that really pushes boundaries and that holds power to account. And I think it's a dangerous game being in this media space. And I'd love to get some feedback from the panel. We've got some questions lined up as well. Please put your questions in the chat. Raise your hand if you want to ask something. Just this idea of being in this landscape, this media landscape, and what we're constantly competing with really requires so much creativity, but that can also be dangerous. So that brings me to a question that we have here. We've got a couple questions in the chat already. It's a question for Jeff. Opening this up here. You obviously, question for Jeff, you're obviously upsetting some powerful people. How do you cope with issues of personal security? And I think this goes for everyone. The same with Zapiro, the same with Stephen. There's a price on the table, you know. We know when we talk about free speech, are we truly free? Because are there systems and protections in place? Perhaps anyone from the panel, and particularly you, Jeff, can touch on this.
Yeah, I think we are threatened in some instances. I don't count the online abuse and derision. That's just par for the course on places like X. It's just a bit of a cesspit. But we have had instances where we've received threats, and you know, our sort of dictum is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. That's at least how I feel. I mean, I've had bodyguards in my time working at News 24, more out of an abundance of caution than anything direct. But it does force you to confront the brevity of life and the fragility of it when you're telling a story and you're getting up the nose of some dangerous people.
Can I say something? Yeah, I'm sure that the kind of hard news journalists are the ones who get the real threats, like you, Jeff. I have, of course, as a cartoonist, basically I piss off everybody, and you know, and it's an old cliche that if you're not pissing off everybody, you're not doing your job. I mean, to an extent. It's not as if it's a gratuitous thing. It's something where, because I want to maintain the kind of principles and that I've always maintained, that I look dispassionately, in a sense, with attitude and with passion, but I look impartially at things that I think are human rights violations by whoever and are corruption by whoever. You find that I've really pissed off, in terms of religious groups, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, Jews, and I'm Jewish, as I said, Hindus, Buddhists. Really, I've got the kind of full house of religious offense, apart from pretty much all the political parties. And I have had death threats. I've also been beaten up in public during the World Cup on the fan walk. It was for something that I did. I did a Prophet Muhammad cartoon. I did it carefully and I did it with intent. But I've been, and actually, what you know, in a sense, it's not the ones that threaten you out there, like some of the kind of bluster, like Jeff was also referring to that. It's not those, it's the ones that come quietly that you really have to watch for. And I found out 2 years after the fact that there was an assassination plot against me in 2015. I found out from the Hawks, no less, and not even nice Hawks. They were certainly not nice people, the people that who contacted me, and they had a terrible, I actually told them, I said, you have a horrendous bedside manner. If this is how you treat somebody who is a potential victim of an assassination plot, I hate to think how you treat anyone who you actually have a real beef with. But that is, it was incredibly scary that I was targeted to perhaps be killed with small arms, poison, or explosive. And this was by the Tulsi twins. So yeah, that.
We just got a comment saying, "What if I don't want to piss anyone off?"
You know, if you're a cartoonist and you don't want to, I mean, I don't know whether that's tongue in cheek. That could also be tongue in cheek. You can be a cartoonist who just goes for the kind of nice, fluffy, feel good humor, that type of thing. I'm not in that game to be a cartoonist like that. I believe that I really want to be, as I said, a visual journalist or a visual columnist. I have attitudes. I'm not a reporter. I don't have to be balanced. I can really go for things. And the word advocacy, which is part of what this seminar is all about, advocacy is promoting causes and principles that you believe in. That's what I'm in. And I want to find the best ways to communicate those things. And sometimes that is shock, and sometimes that will piss people off. I have no problem causing offense. What I don't want to do is punch down. I don't want to stereotype groups. I don't want to stereotype people for their the background that they come from or whatever. But for attitudes, and I want to punch up. I want to be attacking the demagogues, the politicians, and the religious so-called leaders who are trampling over people's rights and who are promoting what I think is often sexist and misogynist and various other homophobic views. I want to go for those people.
Yeah, Jeff, that 60,000 Rand cash bribe that you touched on earlier by one of your colleagues. I mean, a lot of us would have seen that video. These are people that clearly on camera have been caught red-handed bribing. Are we going to not offend them because we, what would your touch be on this idea of being minded as a journalist? Or
yeah, I mean, I struggle to relate to that question, and if it's meant intentionally and not jokingly. Like I said when I was speaking, we have an immense responsibility in the work that we do, and it's something that I take extremely seriously. And I've never been a journalist. I didn't get in this for the fame, because there is no such. All that I ever wanted to do was to advance the truth. And in the work that I currently do, I get the opportunity to do that. And I can tell you, it gives me a great thrill to take these people on. One of my favorite moments in story construction is the confrontation, because at that point I've prepared. I know I'm the smartest one in this room, and I'm going to catch you. And I mean, so we were investigating the Tembiso hospital scandal with all of the proxy directors that were heads of these fake companies. And these were just normal people who were being steered by a puppeteer. But I still haunt those people. That project is long closed. Sometimes when I get bored on a Friday, I'll send them a message and ask them if they're ready to talk yet. And then if they've got the gumption to respond, I'll tell them that there's a knock coming at their door very soon. And it usually comes at night. And then I imagine them moving out of their homes for the weekend because they're worried about the Hawks and what I know. And, we suffer in the South African context with a distinct lack of accountability. If you look at that Tembiso hospital matter, we are now approaching the 4th anniversary of Babita Deokaran's death. Not a single person has been tried for corruption. When 2.3 billion Rand has been stolen from a public hospital, it angers me. So I take great pride in being the one to confront these people, because these are the people who have absolutely flourished in the climate of fear that they've created. They count on their actions forcing silence. They won't get it from us. And that's a wonderful thing about journalism, is that we lost so much during the state capture period. So many elements of society were denuded, and we're still feeling the effects of it now. But something that was not denuded was investigative journalism. And that is why we understand who the Guptas are. This is why we now understand who Paul Mashatile is. This is the role that we play. If you are not pissing people off, you're not doing a job. And like Zapiro said, it's not gratuitous and it's not ad hominem. We target people who need to be targeted.
I think in the context of this particular seminar series and what we are trying to do in terms of inspiring students, Jeff, you have years of experience, Zapiro, decades of experience, Stephen, you've got years of experience as well. I think as journalists, we really build up a rapport, we build up a network, we find our own identity, our own voice, our attitude towards storytelling. But as upcoming and emerging journalists stepping into the space, now working on projects relating to issues of freedom of expression, looking at things like safety, looking at how to approach certain things, I want to just also start encouraging a couple students, for the interest of time as well, to start telling us what it is that you're working on and how you've approached it so far, so that our panel can give you a little bit of guidance and talk to you. Please be open. If you're not too, if you haven't progressed very far with where you are in your project or your ideas right now, maybe we can help you mold them and shape them. We do have a couple questions. Mr. Zapiro, you mentioned that you do not want to be the balance. Is this because there's no balance in honest journalism, or seeking for balance dilutes the outcome of journalism? And there's also a question to Jeff. Are there systems in place to protect journalists who expose powerful people and for whistleblowers as well? And I think perhaps Babita Diokran's story can link in quite nicely there. Zapiro, are you happy to answer that?
Sure. I think again, there may be some misunderstanding of the word of the concept of balance. I've said now in two different ways, both during the during this little discussion and also during my presentation, that I'm not a reporter. I'm somebody who gives opinion, who voices advocacy, who promotes ideas and principles and things that I believe in. So the idea of balance is not something that I'm interested in at all. What I'm interested in is that actually the balance is tilted way in the favor, again, as both my colleagues have already indicated as well. The balance is tipped in favor of the corrupt, in favor of the power mongers, in favor of the demagogues, in favor of people who are voicing all kinds of terrible xenophobic, homophobic, sexist, misogynist, all sorts of ideas. And I'm coming as one journalist, one commentator, one satirist, who sometimes wants to take those things on. And so I'm not interested in balance. If somebody is being corrupt and seen to be and is always voicing the kind of attitudes that I've alluded to, I want to take them on. And I don't, the concept of balance doesn't interest me at all. I want to really just give it to them in the solar plexus. I want to hit them really hard. That's what we're supposed to do. Journalists, cartoonists, satirists, columnists, people like that, who are not reporters. Even reporters. The idea of balance and Jeff could speak more about that, but the balance is tilted so much in the favor of the corrupt and the power mongers and the demagogues. You want to take them on if you see something, and as long as you're reporting properly and well, the concept of balance is not particularly important in my view, but certainly when it comes to satire and commentating, it really is, it's a non-factor for me.
Mr. Zapiro, do you ever feel you have gone too far? Do you see how far you can push the envelope?
I do push the envelope often as far as I can go. Within the sort of journalistic structure, there are different players. There are, you're going to have, say, let's say in my case, you have the cartoonist, you have the editor, you'll have the lawyers, and even if we're all basically trying to get good, strong stuff out there, there are people who have different roles. I mean, they will sometimes rein me in if there's something I like having the discussions with editors. Although it's basically my ideas and my take, I want to have a good dialogue with my editors. I want to actually get input from other people. Maybe there are things where I sort of go in white hot rage, and as Peter Dirk Ace has often said, satire is 51% humor and 49% anger. And if the anger is slightly more than the humor or the cleverness or whatever, it might actually even fall flat. So you may not even make it work. But the point about it is that you're trying to go far, and sometimes that involves stuff that will offend some people, but it'll get people talking. It'll get people to see things in new ways. Have I ever gone too far? I'm sure I have. I've done, 6,000, I don't know how many cartoons. And there are probably 2 or 3 of them where I feel I've gone too far out of 6,000. Other people are going to say I've gone too far a hell of a lot of times. But the point is that I really do feel that the vast majority, I stand by what I've done. And of course, I'm human, I make mistakes. But I don't think in my opinion, I haven't gone too far very often. But as I say, other people will have a different point of view, and that's their right.
Thank you. Jeff?
Sorry, please, can you refresh my memory with the question? Was it the one about whistleblower protection?
That's
Or
correct.
journalist protection?
We have another one. I'm just going to add it if you don't mind.
Lay it on me.
Protect journalists who expose powerful people, and for whistleblowers as well. And then to Jeff Wicks, wow, keep up the good work. What do you think of the South African media representation of the so-called minority or disadvantaged people? I think let's try, and after this, perhaps we've got about 2 students who volunteered to just share a little bit about what they're working on. But yes, Jeff, maybe the representation of the so-called minority or disadvantaged people, and then the protection measures in place as well as for whistleblowers.
I'm not quite sure what the representation question means. So and the whistleblower protection and journalist protection are 2 disparate issues, and I could talk for hours. But I think whistleblowers, there are mechanisms in place to protect them, and they are wholly inadequate. Bubita's case is just one of many hundreds that proves it. With protection for journalists, it's a concern, especially with smaller media outlets. I mean, I work for a corporate behemoth, and I'm very lucky that when I piss people off, they hire me bodyguards, which are very costly. And we have regular security audits where we have these ex-cops traipsing through our homes, checking where the entry points are and examining our routes to work to see that no one's going to try bump us off. But I'm lucky because I work for a company that can afford it. And, safety of journalists is a concern the world over, and it's no different here. And it's something that all of you students will confront when you go out and start working. It's not always a kind place, not to dissuade you, but you must be ready to confront the reality of what you're walking into. That said, the only time I've ever needed protection is in the last 5 years. I had a long career as a journalist before that, pissing people off, yes, but never requiring men with guns to follow me around shopping malls.
Thank you, Jeff. And I think the other question about marginalized voices, that's definitely going to be coming up in our next seminar, the next webinar that we've got lined up for the 4th of September. But what we're going to do now is we've got two persons who are ready to volunteer. Are you able to unmute yourself? I think the first person is Buyaka.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Please go ahead. Tell us what you're specializing in, and what your project is and how's it going so far.
Okay, thank you so much. So I am Bunya Buyaka Chikudo. I am a second year student at Rhodes University. And when I was in high school, when I was doing grade 11, which was in 2021, I decided to start posting videos of myself informing my classmates on current affairs that are happening around the country. Because, you know, teenagers don't watch news. So I'd post that. And during break, they'd come to me telling me that they are happy that I'm informing them because they wouldn't even be aware of what's happening in the country. And guys would also come to me saying that they are happy that I also talk about sports as well because that's what they're interested in. Then now that I'm in university, I don't really have time to take videos of myself. So I thought, let me venture into something else. So I started to create a ebook that is focused on male students. So is it okay if I share my screen so that I show everyone how it looks like?
Please do. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. God. How exactly do I do that? I'm not sure.
There's that share button at the bottom that you need to click on and then go to the file that you want to show.
Yeah. So in the center, it should be green.
Oh, okay. Share.
Yes.
And there.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, share.
Okay, there we go. Looks like it's sharing. There we go. We can see it. Great.
Oh, okay, I'm glad. So this is how it looks like. It's called the Lazy But Fresh Glow Up Guide. I do want to change the word lazy because when it comes to guys and taking care of themselves, I don't want them to be lazy in doing that. So as you can see here, there's the before picture and the after picture. So what this ebook is about, sharing skincare routines for guys, what they need to know about pimples and acne, how to treat acne if they have, how to take care of their beards, how to shave, how to shower, because most guys, I'm sure, they just think that you can just apply soap on your body and rinse it off and that's it. And taking care of their nails, hairstyles that they can do, oral care, finding their personal style, and yeah. Okay, so this is just the welcome page.
May I interject there for a second? So is this particular project something that you're going to be entering for the Speak Up essay competition?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for sharing some of that. I think that's really interesting. I'd love to get to more of it, but perhaps we can get back to it. I think, can we ask the second student who's volunteered also just to briefly show what they're working on? And I think we'll get back to this if that's okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Just for the interest of time. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Okay. Can you hear me? Cool. So okay, my name is Mina Ndlela. I'm doing my 4th year in journalism, specializing in film and documentary. The piece that I wanted to speak about is a documentary that I'm planning on finalizing eventually for the competition. It aims to highlight freedom of expression through freedom of speech in music. I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Hotsticks Mabuse when he was in Grahamstown earlier on this year. And it's going to sort of start off with that and develop with some local artists in Makanda. And not just in Makanda, to sort of just, I don't know, I'm still planning stages of it. And where I'm stuck with this is it feels a bit too creative to carry the message of freedom of expression. But at the same time, I don't want it to be too serious and too linear. Yeah, so I think that's where I am in terms of just finalizing my plan and the project. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to put that to the panel. What are your comments on this initiative, this idea, this kind of submission, documentary style, music, creative, looking at freedom of expression? Maybe is the question possibly linked to how freedom of expression can come through in a more sort of coherent way? Is that the question that we're looking at? Or issues of freedom of expression through music? Is this the kinds
Yes,
of
it's more about how musicians carry the message of freedom of expression, because I remember when I was interviewing Mr. Hotsticks, I asked him to reflect on the songs that he made back then, because obviously he is an artist during apartheid times. He wrote a lot of songs during exile, hit songs that we sing nowadays as well are somewhat inspired from that period. Compared to artists nowadays, we're in somewhat democracy, and you never hear that message in the music, or not never, maybe never is too final, but it seems to be polarized, if not as loud as before. Yeah.
Let's put that to the panel. Stephen.
Can weigh in, I guess. I just thought I would say it's such a great idea, and I'm really pleased to hear you thinking about music and freedom of expression. I think it's a great vehicle. I think there's like a kind of parallel with the idea of cartoons being able to visually convey ideas. Music is another excellent, powerful medium. And I think South Africa, as you mentioned, with the anti-apartheid struggle songs, that South Africa has such a long storied history of musicians playing a vital role, and using music to communicate ideas is a really effective strategy. So think about what the burning issues of today are, whether it's climate change, the war in Palestine, the war in Ukraine or Russia, the new kind of terrifying world order that Trump is unleashing through, the kind of populist, right-wing nationalist rhetoric. How can music push back? Can we ask our artists to speak up? And can we challenge our artists not to greenwash or to political party wash? So that is a really difficult challenge, right? Because the new age of music sustainability is as challenging as journalism, when platforms like Spotify have allowed the CEO of Spotify to earn billions, who's now investing in apparently an AI drone weaponry warfare, while musicians earn peanuts. There's statistics about how little musicians make from Spotify streams. They cannot sustain their livelihoods in this way. So when that is the case, how can musicians also use music to ensure that they convey that message, that they need to that we need to be supporting them to ensure that music stays alive so it can convey other important messages. And there's many analogs with, say, film and other things. I just want to raise that I can't remember the popular artist it was, but something to look out for, and something I've been involved in, is taking on the power of the African Energy Chamber, which is a pro-fossil fuel lobby group that works across the African continent to promote new oil and gas exploration. And the problem there is that the UN has warned that we cannot afford to continue drilling for new sources of oil and gas. We're sending the planet into a hot house Earth, which endangers all of our futures. And in Cape Town, this large conference happens where all the oil and petroleum ministers from the entire continent descend on Cape Town to discuss new deals, most of them to do with new fossil fuel rights and exploration. And on the sidelines of this conference is something called the Just Energy Transition Concert. And mainstream stars of South Africa's music industry are paid, no doubt, very nice fees to appear and to essentially greenwash a conference who's the chairman of the African Energy Chamber has been convicted for fraud in the US for impersonating a congressman. So this is not someone who should be leading the conversation on African energy transition. We need to be elevating, much stronger voices and civil society voices and voices that are speaking about the best possible, clean, feasible, fair, equitable, and what's for the best for the economy, which is a much lower carbon pathway. So I just think the role of musicians and the way you've conceptualized your project sounds really exciting, and I'm hoping to hear more about it soon.
Thank you, Stephen. Just before we wrap up, we do have one more student up here who's just briefly going to share what they're working on, and then the panel can give some guidance on that, and then we will conclude. Thank you everyone for your time, for your expertise, for contributing, for listening in. But just before we get to the end of things, Apiwe Ngowapi, please can you unmute?
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? All right. So I'm Apiwe Ngowapi. I'm doing my first year master's at the Journalism and Media Studies School, and I'm doing a full thesis. So I thought of using like a part of what I'm doing for my thesis this year. So it's carrying on from last year's research. So last year there's this group here in Grahamstown in Makanda. It's a Facebook group. It started as a Facebook group in 2020, back when it was like COVID and everything was down. So what happened was there's been like a high rate of crime in the township, so where the disadvantaged people are. There's a high rate of crime and drug use and all of that. So when they started the Facebook group, they started it as a crime fighting group because so many people were experiencing break-ins and robberies and all of those things. So to tackle these things, because the Grahamstown municipality and the police have not been working, the community decided to take things over like themselves by helping each other. So they post stuff on like a crime incident that happened. For example, you lost your phone or you got robbed in this area. And then other people would, through the comment section, would comment on, oh yeah, I did see people like this or anything like that. And then the group admins would post the criminals after they found them. So it ended up now being a platform where people are expressing their how dissatisfied they are with the municipality, the poor infrastructure, unemployment, all the social issues you can find. But now I'm confused as how I'm going to make it a creative storytelling platform. So I'd like a bit of help from that. Yeah. I don't know if...
Yeah, thank you. We'll put that to the panel. Just for clarity purposes, Apiwe, is this particularly, so is this in addition to your thesis, which is a written piece? Are you thinking of other ways to add to this thesis, possibly in video format or in any other mode of storytelling? Or are you saying that you're specifically wanting to add something written to or are you open to other ideas?
Yes, I am open to other ideas. I did think of like a video piece or documentary, let's say photographs, and then a bit of text explaining these photographs, and maybe a short documentary of just what these members use to like fight the crime. So yeah.
Zapiro, what kind of an image would you create? What would you do in terms of cartoons? Stephen, in terms of humor and satire, how would you do you have anything off the top of your head that you could kind of add to this idea? And then Jeff, in terms of investigative journalism, what do you think fact checking, holding power to account, and making this an interesting story?
Well, it seems you asked me first, but this one I don't see necessarily as being, you know, primarily in my sort of genre. But I'm really interested in the stories that would be coming out of interviewing these individuals. So whether you're telling it, whether you're telling those with audio visual stuff, whether you're actually doing the video clips, or whether you're writing those things up, they are going to feed into whatever you come up with in terms of your attitudes as to what the problems are and how these people are dealing with it. But to me, the stories that must be coming out from actually interviewing those people, however you choose to express those stories, must be incredibly interesting in themselves, and will allow you to develop an attitude towards what you come up with. You could, of course, always use, I mean, just by the by, always do in my kind of genre to actually sort of add something, do cartoons that express some sort of attitude, for sure. But I think that I'm not sure that that's your like where you're going with this. I think that you've got you really must have fascinating stories coming out there which you can use to mold what you come up with.
Should I follow swiftly on, Kat? Thanks, Jonathan. I thought I would just quickly add that it's a really interesting idea. I think that we use satire often in order to get the message across in a way exactly as is being expressed around using surprise and change. So make sure that if you want people to pay attention, take these stories and then think about shifting the perspective in an unexpected way. Like suddenly instead of making it the perspective of the victims, which is what people might expect to hear about, do a TikTok sketch style thing where you actually where you get actors or comedians to play the criminals in the community. And now let's have and then combine that with a South African popular Mojo Love reality format. And now suddenly you get the crime message through. This is literally what's happening. You use the real facts, you ground those in people's experiences, but it's hysterically funny and it's in a TikTok sketch and now it can go viral. And so thinking about ways, that's how I would approach it probably.
And my turn, and I'd love how we're each going in a different direction with this. Aweh, I think you're onto something good here, and I would go a totally different direction. And why I say this is that I think, you know, a harder, more cynical perspective, and not to gainsay anyone else, but I mean, we understand the proliferation and the devastation of vigilantism. And vigilantism occurs when we have abject policing failures. And when you talk about this group, it was born of that. But, you know, it's going to depend on how you want to frame it. And I think it's topical because of what's been happening in KwaZulu-Natal with people, you know, the extrajudicial killings of the police. And you have an opportunity here to really expose what happens when there is no due process. You know, how many of the people outed on that Facebook group, investigated by no one except people on the internet, were harmed, injured, or killed, you know, unjustly? And then when the criminals were caught, and those criminals who were killed, is stealing a cell phone an offense punishable by death? Where do we draw the line when we start shambocking people in the street? And it's rooted in a greater societal problem. So however you choose to pursue this, I think it's important, and well done.
Thank you. Yes, fantastic how it's completely different perspectives on one idea. And I think the more we have these kinds of discussions, the more it could sort of prickle at your ideas, imagination, and we'd love to continue, but this is unfortunately the end of this webinar series. We are so thankful. I just see there, Stephen, perhaps these different communication strategies can complement each other to get the message out there. Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And that certainly is a way to be creative. And being creative sometimes has its challenges, sometimes collaborating and like you say, touching on these different things, combining them could be a great approach. So with that said, I'd really like to thank our panel, Zapiro, Stephen Horn, Jeff Wicks. You guys have been phenomenal. You've added so much value. We truly appreciate your time. We know how busy you are, and the School of Journalism and Media Studies to be collaborating with us as the Campaign for Free Expression. We're so happy about this collaboration. Prof. Toy, who's behind all of that, Atang, who's doing all the behind the scenes stuff and assisting with absolutely everything with this project. Thank you very, very much. Also running the Zoom for us. So thank you everyone for attending. Just before we go, I'm going to ask everyone to either drop it in the chat or just quickly mention, how can we follow you? How can we get a hold of you? Can we reach out? What's the best way to see your work? And as you pop that in the chat, or as you're about to mention that, I just want to say that we're going to be popping in the chat as well a link to a WhatsApp group for you to join if you haven't joined it yet, to the Speak Up South Africa survey, just to get an idea of how you're finding this experience so far. And that's all from me. Thank you very much. Got some stuff coming in the chat here. Anything from anyone from the panel?
Just thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be with you. I'm conscious that we didn't answer the first person who showed their work. I would say I would already say I want to see more of you, more of your attitudes. That's kind of why I think nobody really responded. We need to see some attitude coming through. That was a bit of a how-to kind of book. So just, yeah, attitudes are coming through from some other people, and that's, I think, what we're all about, is attitude.
Yeah. Zapiro, thank you for coming back to that, and my apologies for not doing that. I've completely missed that. Yes, very good point. Perhaps someone else can touch on that. You can email us as well. We will be having small group consultations, so not with this esteemed panel, but we will be having consultations, and we can certainly refine some of these ideas and see. What we want to do is we want to push boundaries. We want people to speak up. We want to give these journalism students and give all of you a space where you can tell stories that have impact and that are powerful. It's interesting a how-to guide, how it relates to freedom of expression. Perhaps we could explore more of that. But thank you everyone for joining. This session will definitely be going up onto YouTube, and we'll pop you that link as well.